Hey everyone, we are super excited to be here with you today. I am so excited to partner with my friend Julie. Oh, sorry, Dr. Julie. And we are just excited to talk about the connection between wellness and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So let me hand it off to my phenomenal partner to go over some quick norms, and as well as introduce ourselves.
Thank you, Patricia. Absolutely so excited to be here with you and with our audience today. It's so excited. We have so much fun when we train together, just so much energy in the room. And so I do a lot of work in the social connection space, and so excited to announce that today the Surgeon General put out a report about social connectedness and how it will improve your mental health in the workspace. So very timely for what we're talking about today. And so let's just kind of get started with what we're going to talk about.
Awesome, awesome. And I am Patricia Morgan, CEO and founder of the Executive Learning Lab. Today's topic is very meaningful to me as someone that's often felt, I don't want to say othered in the workplace, but sometimes like I don't belong, or I wanted that social connection at work. And today we're going to talk about the benefits of having those connections. But first, let's just do some quick debriefs and definitions so that you can kind of see how we've wrapped our heads around the intersection of wellness and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So I love everything DEIB. I believe it is my life's passion, what I am here to do and to discuss. And so I want to make sure that we all have a shared definition of DEIB, the way that I see it. So first, let's talk about diversity. So to me, diversity is just the ways that we have these human differences, and they range from like not just race and ethnicity and gender, those are most often the common ones, but also religion, sexual orientation, physical ability, our socioeconomic status, and recognizing the value that those differences bring to the workplace. Equity is important to me because equity is not equality. It's not like Oprah giving out all of those cars. You get a car, you get a car, everyone gets a car. When if you're in New York, you don't need a car. Well, you may, depending on what part of New York you live in. But equity is about how do we leverage our capital and ensure that people have access to things, that they are treated fairly, and that everyone has opportunity. Inclusion to me is creating this environment that is supportive, where you value what I bring to the table. Oh, 1 second, we have somebody coming in. You value what I bring to the table. You value everything that I am because of the differences that I have. And belonging to me is the most important. I really don't think that we can talk about DEI without belonging. To me, if we're talking about DEI without belonging, then we're doing it for metric sakes. We're doing it to check a box. It's very performative. And belonging is like, I'm accepted because of who I am and the different ways that I come to know, do, and be. And you find value in that. All right, so let's go to Julie. Help us grapple with this idea of mental health. And I think it's really important because there's a lot of stigma around mental health, especially in the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, mental health is what we call these days the echo pandemic, which is it keeps coming back based on the pandemic that we experienced several years ago. And mental health is really it's a state of being. It is equal to physical health, but not seen as equal to physical health. And that's because of just the stigma that you just mentioned, right? And so we need to strive to have this positive mental health because, I mean, right now we're going through, according to the World Health Organization, we're experiencing a global mental health crisis with over 1 billion people struggling with their mental health. And if you're in any meeting or talking to any person and you say, like, do you know somebody who's struggling with their mental health? Pretty much everybody does, whether it's their own selves or somebody else in their life. We all pretty much know somebody who's struggling at this point. And so what we want to do is we want to help people recognize that, first of all, it's okay to be struggling. And when you are, you can reach out to somebody and talk to somebody. And in the workspace, it's important to recognize that there is an intersectionality between DEIB and mental health. When people feel that sense of belonging and feel that sense of purpose, they actually have better mental health. And so we want to create that in the workspace as much as possible. I mean, I was just saying, like a new report came out from the Surgeon General, and it's all about creating this sense of connection and belonging. And that now, and that's the topic of what we're talking about, that now is going to be like the next stage of how do we help people improve their mental health through the things that they do every day. And many of us work every day. So we need to figure out, how do we turn this workspace into a place that actually pours into our cup instead of takes away from our cup?
Yes, I can totally relate. I have been in situations in workplaces where I felt that I was like an outsider, or it took such energy, so much energy to walk in. Like I would have to prep myself to walk into the workplace. Like I would sit in my car, like I would literally get to work. And I am not a morning person. Everyone that has ever met me, you know this, Julie, like I don't like to get up before 11 a.m. I don't think I'll ever acclimate to being a morning person or, you know, love morning meetings. But this job, like I would literally get to work at least 30 to 45 minutes early because I needed to sit in silence to get ready to face not just the microaggressions and stuff, but just like to prep myself to feel like an outsider. And I think that's really important when we're talking about like, how do you like increase productivity, performance, and employee engagement if they don't feel as if they belong, if that's not their safe space. And because we spend the bulk of our time at work, I think it's important for us to discuss it. So for protocol's sake, we will record just our responses to some of the discussion questions, but not the participants. So I'll pause it when we open the floor for others, because we do respect, you know, what you want to contribute, and we want to hold that safe. But we also want people to hear, and we're open to sharing our thoughts. And so here's the first discussion question. Around here, to be professional, you have to blank. Okay, Julie, you got to take this first because you know I'm gonna like go off if I take this first.
I think, I mean, for me, around here, to be professional, you have to. I used to think that it had a lot to do with, you know, like your position within the organization, but also the way you dress. If you dress professionally, sometimes it had to do with, you know, the language that you used. If you were, you know, speaking in more of a professional tone versus more of a relaxed or, you know, comfortable slang speak or whatever. Definitely, you know, what you eat and where you eat, like if you eat at your desk or if you go out for lunch or something like that, that has something to do with it. And appearances, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely agree. So I felt for the longest that I've had to change, not like you've heard of code switching. Like, no, I was not code switching. I was changing my entire identity to fit into a workplace. Like these braids that I have right now, I absolutely love them. They're just like the best self-care that I could do for myself because I don't have to fool with my hair, especially when I'm, you know, I was at the beach last week. Like this is perfect. And it's a great protective style. But years ago, I would like be horrified to like try to wear braids or my natural hair to work because I, for the longest, was felt to believe, like I don't want to say I was felt. Let me not say that. It felt that way. Like it felt that as if that was not professional. Like for me to wear braids, for me to wear my hair in a style that is not straight. I felt that that is what I had to do to conform to the institutions that I unfortunately was a part of. And, you know, that took away a big part of my identity because I'm very creative. Like I love like designing things. I love changing up my hair every 2 weeks. I love bright. Oh, you should see my nails right now. They're like bright and blingy because like it was my birthday and I was like, I'm going to be me. Like I'm going to have fun with this. And years ago, I would not do that. Like I would keep my nails to a certain length. I would do only French manicures because I thought that that was like the go-to professional style. I would straighten my hair all the time, and I definitely would not wear braids. And so I felt like I had to check a lot of my culture and who I am at the professional door to be accepted. Let me pause and see if anyone. Oh, you had something? Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, I was just going to add something first. You know, and I was doing some consulting with an organization, and when I started working with them, they had a policy that you could not have anything other than a natural hair color.
And what is that?
And
Like,
what does that even mean, right? But that was literally their policy.
yeah.
So I mean, what does that mean? And when in further conversation, it was like, you can't have blue hair color or purple hair color. It has to be like a natural hair color. And though, why? Like, well,
I
I don't
know,
even
like, how does that impact your ability to do your job? Like,
yeah,
I don't get it. Okay,
yeah,
so let's
yeah.
pause and hear from our group. Yes, that was great discussion from our guests. And so one of the things, the topic that came up is something that resonated with me. So coming back on a Monday and having someone like pose the question, what do you do this weekend? Like I felt like I could never be introverted. Well, I'm not an introverted person, if you know me, I'm like,
What?
I am like the life of the party. But like I really, because of that, like because I have this like huge personality, my weekends are spent like laying, like sinking into my sofa. And so like when you come back on Monday, I used to like lie about what I did because I wanted to like sound cool. So I would say I went hiking or we went to the mountains. Y'all, my first time, I've been saying like when they ask, what do you do for the holiday break, Christmas break or what did you do? Like, first of all, my mom's family was Jehovah's Witness. So we did nothing for the longest. My dad's side of the family, they're Catholic, so we did nothing. But for the most part, I would just say like, oh, we went to the cabins. Yeah, I had like the first time I went to the cabins was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. But I have probably used that excuse professionally for at least 10 years. All right, let's do one more question. Do you want to do this one, Julie, or the next one?
Let's see.
Oh, what? Oh, I like the last one.
Yeah, I like the last one too.
Okay, all right. So what qualities or attributes do you have or have to be seen as a leader in your field of work or your organization? Oh, this one is big. Who's going to take it first, Julie?
I think, this one frustrates me because I think that in many organizations, you're not even eligible to apply for certain positions if you don't have a certain level of like education. Yeah. And we know when we talk about, access to education and access to resources that it's not equitable. So for me, that's really frustrating that not everybody has the same ability to even apply or accept positions. And, I do a lot of work in systems. And within systems, there's like these structures that you can't apply for this job unless you have a master's degree. Well, not everybody was able to get that master's degree, but that person could be an absolute amazing leader. They're just not given the opportunity by virtue of their experience or their history. So I find that really frustrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You want to add something about that?
Yes, I work with a lot of organizations. One of our signature labs for leaders is hiring with a DEI lens. I absolutely love doing this learning lab with our people leaders and our organizational leaders and HR staff, because oftentimes there's a lot of bias and discrimination kind of built in to our job descriptions. For certain roles, there's like little to no difference in the type of employee you're going to get between a bachelor's and a master's. And so I call for leaders to examine, for people leaders and hiring managers specifically, to examine why we have some of those requirements. And if you are already having difficulties hiring this diverse candidates, or your pool is shallow, like you're like, look, I'm not getting diverse candidates. People want to say they don't exist. They do exist, but sometimes the things that you're putting on your job descriptions, they're kind of making that pool even smaller and not allowing for people to showcase the different ways they bring value outside of having a master's. And you're right, there's a lot of lived experiences that you can have that would surpass what you're going to get in a master's program. Like my master's program was a complete blur to me. Honestly, my doctorate program was a complete blur to me. Like I'm still recovering from that trauma. Years later, like I still freeze up when I have to write, for long bouts of time. So I think that we really need to evaluate what we call, who do we call to be leaders and how do they get a chance to advance? I think there's a lot of discrimination unintentionally, but they're built into our job descriptions. They're built into our processes for promotions, even like who do we identify as leaders, as people leaders, like who are we always giving stretch assignments to, and why aren't we being careful about giving assignments to people that may not like be a culture fit, because that's another one that I like to flag. Oh, they're not a culture fit.
What does that
And
mean,
so
right?
yes, like what does that mean? That they think differently? Like, wouldn't that be a value? Like, do you know that productivity increases when we have people that come with different experiences and worldviews and different ways of knowing, doing, and being? And those things are important. I think they're more important to me in some cases than having a master's. And sometimes another one, people get real specific about the skills that you need to have. Like you need to know how to use this technical software, but that's something that you can learn on the job. Like if they have experiences with payment processing systems, maybe they don't need to have experience with QuickBooks exactly, but they need to know how to work, different systems. And so I think it's really important that we evaluate some of the ways that we promote and we attract talent. And I think there's a lot of bias built into those. All right, so let's talk about the benefits of connecting DEI to mental health. I think this is super important. I think it's something that we need to be intentional about doing. You want me to start with belonging, and you can do
sure.
Okay, great. All right, so belonging is your sense that you belong to this community that's bigger than you. When you work with purpose, your productivity, engagement increases because you feel happiness. You feel happy to go to work and that your contribution is contributing to this collective good. And I think it's important for people to belong. I think it's important for them to go to a workspace and say, because of my uniqueness, because of my purple hair and neon green nails, in the different way that I problem solve, like I am an asset to this team. I am uniquely designed. No one can think like me. And that is the value that I bring. And because of that, I think we need to be intentional about making sure that people have access to those safe spaces, those supportive cultures at work, and that we're creating that.
And just think about it. If you're going to a workspace and you're there, you show up, you're there for 8 hours a day, and you don't feel like you're connected and you don't feel like you belong in that space, you're not looking forward to going and you're not giving it your all, right? So you're not going to be part of that team approach. So I mean, I think belonging in your workspace, since we spend so much time there, we have to belong there. We have to feel that sense of belonging.
And I used to check my culture at the door, Julie. Like I felt like I would go into, not all workplaces, but there's definitely been workplaces that I've gone to, and it was the most lonely experience in the world to have to check who I was at the time, because I'm constantly evolving. But it was such a painful experience for me to have to check, and I believe that I lost some of my good energy, some of that juice when that happened as well.
That's terrible, right? Who wants to go to work that way? So then you're not looking forward to it. You're not being productive, and you're not making connections.
Yeah.
The next one is social support, or support in the workspace, which is really important. It's that when you don't have support, you feel lonely or isolated. When you do have support, you're actually able to take risks in the workspace because you know that people got you if something doesn't, go as planned. And when you have that support, you're more willing to get the work done, help other people, and be supportive of others. So it's that you want to look for that reciprocal process. So it's like, I will accept support, but I will also be supportive for others. And having support is what's called a protective factor, meaning that when you know that you've got support, you can take risks because you've got that buffer in case things don't go as planned. You've still got that buffer.
Yeah. And the work that I do with people leaders, I tell them, like, you want to have a culture where people fail fast. Like we kind of work in that startup space, Julie. So, like we're used to failing fast, like, oh, wow, I did this huge mistake with this Zoom link, like I want to fail fast and learn from it so that the next one could be phenomenal. And you want to have a work culture where people can fail fast so that they can get back to doing the work. And I think failure a lot of people look down on failure, but I think failure is a sign that you are stronger than your pride, that you're stronger than your ego, that you're willing to go out there, put yourself out there and have those difficult moments like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm winging it, but we're gonna get this done. So yes, we need those protective factors in place if we want to increase productivity and if we want to create that sense of belonging. I need to know that you're going to have my back even when I'm not doing well.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead and start with engagement.
So engagement is something that, I mean, when we're trying to create this sense of belonging, engagement is so important. When you show up someplace, you have to feel like you're connected, that people want to talk to you, that you can be part of the team-based process. Recognizing, like you said, everybody has differences, and then honoring those differences in a way that, like, I'm looking forward to learning about what's different about you. Right. And so when I do trainings with professionals, helping them understand the value and importance of engagement, but you really can't have this sense of belonging if it doesn't first start with getting to know each other and feeling connected and engaged in this process. So when you, as an employer, intentionally focus on building engagement, the result of that is going to be creating supportive environments and creating a sense of belonging.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the next discussion question is a video, but I don't think we can record it without permission. So let's just have the discussion. So we'll share this video with you for those of you that want it. It was a hilarious, it wasn't actually hilarious, it was really sad. But the video basically is a TikTok or an Instagram reel discussing like how we have to have boundaries at work. So we wanted to take some time to address the elephant in the room. Like, you know, how do you get that sense of belonging at work while also like supporting those boundaries? Like, I know that I don't want to tell you everything about me. I know that you're not entitled to know everything about me. But I also know that I want to form this deep and meaningful connection with the people that I have to work close with. So how do I set up boundaries so that you can respect me and the fact that I didn't do anything this weekend, but if I don't feel like sharing what I really did, it's not going to look like I'm antisocial or I don't want to be a team player. Because I think often, I'm just speaking for myself, Julie, as a Black woman in my skin, I feel that sometimes I don't have the space to not be social. Like, I feel like I have to be this way. Well, I'm naturally this way, but I feel like especially at work, I have to be this way so that people do not get that angry Black woman stereotype that I've often heard about in the workplace. Like, I don't have the luxury of having a bad day. I don't even have the luxury of being passionate about the stuff that really matters to me because I'm afraid of how I used to be afraid of how someone would receive that. So how do we set these boundaries, Doc? How do we do it?
Well, you know what's so funny is, Doc, I'm calling you Doc back. You know what's so funny is, there's so many times when I hear a Black woman say something and I'm like, okay, but I'm white and I think the same thing.
Yeah.
And I
that's
really
why I'm
feel
clear
like that,
about being like always saying like, this is my experience, because this is not like, there's no universal truth for these different identities that we have, right? Like, there's no universal truth. Like, I can't speak for every Black woman. So I'm always intentional about saying, this is how I felt in my skin. And yeah, you probably felt it too, but like, I can't be angry. I can't be passionate without being the angry Black woman. I'm afraid of that stigma.
well, so I think that's the difference, like, because I always think of it as like imposter syndrome. Like, I feel like I'm here trying to be something that I'm not, or pretending that I'm something that I'm not.
Okay.
But I also think like when I experience something, perhaps what somebody else is experiencing is like that kicked up a notch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's true or not, because I can only experience what I experience. Right. But I know on the weekends, like this morning, actually, I was walking, this morning I was like going for a walk and I ran into a neighbor who asked me what I did this weekend. And I was like, what did I do this weekend? Like, I honestly couldn't even remember. And then I was like, oh, I went to a bar mitzvah. Like, it took me a minute to remember, but I was like,
Yeah.
I really don't remember. And it wasn't anything super like amazing, but I
Yeah.
had that moment of like, maybe I didn't do anything. I don't remember,
I wasn't productive enough,
I
right?
wasn't productive enough and she's going to judge, I did have that moment. And so to hear
Yeah.
you talk about it as though it's something that really impacts you, I think that's, I mean, we are different, but I think that's a similarity because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that it's okay to acknowledge that, like, yeah, everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
But I hear you about like you don't want to be perceived as an angry Black woman. I don't want to be perceived as an emotional white woman.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we all got our own thing, so like
Yeah.
if I were in a meeting and I got really frustrated, they would be like, oh, you can't manage your emotions.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing, like
Yeah.
but it's
Yes.
not,
That's
I
what
don't
I
want
love.
to.
Yeah, it is, but it's not. Like there are, and that's why we need like this safe space, this place of belonging, so that we can share those experiences. Like I think it's okay to be vulnerable in that sense, but I have not found it easy to share that with others, especially with people that don't look like me, because I'm like, they can't possibly understand what I'm going through. But the way you just said it, I'm like, oh, you get it. Like you get it. Like you probably don't understand my unique experience, but from your lens, you understand. And I don't understand your experience because I've never been called an emotional white woman. So I don't understand that, but it's really important for me to hear that, like, I have a safe space to share that with someone.
Yeah, and I love having I mean, you and I have these amazing
Yeah.
conversations just
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
But I loved, like somebody was asking me a question about like, how racism affects them, and I said, I can't answer that question the same way that
Yeah.
you would answer that question, but I can tell you, just if I have to change the frame of the question, that doesn't change the picture. You know what I mean? If I have to look at it from a different direction, as long as I'm willing to look at it,
Yeah.
and try to see it from my perspective. I can't see it from yours, but I could see it from mine. I just have
And
to
I
be
think it's
willing to look.
important that we do that. Like I think we all have work to do. And I love that picture analogy because like no one is exempt from like doing the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, none. All right, so let's go to some of the tips that we've provided. We're going to quickly go through this for time's sake because we are running out of time and we could have this conversation forever. Like we could literally have this conversation forever. So here are some quick tips. You want to handle this one and I'll talk about what managers and people leaders can do?
Absolutely.
All right.
So how can we support each other in the workspace? Specifically, how do we improve, our mental health? One is set boundaries and respect boundaries. And so that video that we're going to send out, that talks a lot about boundaries. Just know what your boundaries are and stick to them and don't let people push you, past your boundaries. Create a culture that really prioritizes and centers on DEIB, which is really important. Is like, let's just make sure that that's part of every conversation, every decision, every agenda. Make that part of our regular process that we're centering on it, right? Be aware of mental health. And I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, all of that relates to mental health and stigma of mental health too. And so we want people who are others, who are different, to feel that they do belong. And that means even when you're experiencing some kind of mental health challenge. And if you feel comfortable or you need to access resources and support, know that your, employee assistance program is there for you. Create a safe environment. And that's what I love about working with you, is because we have created this safe environment where we can see things from different sides and be like, okay, that makes sense. I appreciate you sharing your view. And then this is a work in progress for me. I think you're doing a little better about it, is this work-life balance thing. I'm trying, but it's not working, but I'm trying.
Harder. Yeah, you're emailing me on vacation. I'm like, Julie, I am on the beach. There's a reason I can't open this Canva link. I did not bring my laptop.
I know, I said that to you. I'm like, I think maybe you're not supposed to be reading this. You're like, I know, so quit sending it to me.
Yes. Well, so now if you are interested in learning more, we have a 5-part series that we would love to bring to your organization that really connects this idea of wellness and prioritizing wellness as well as belonging in the workplace. So it's a 5-part module. The first part, we're going to define a little bit more in detail than what we did today. What is a community? What is wellness at work? How do we operationalize these terms and reduce stigma? Then we're going to talk about psychological safety in the workplace. How do we have that safe space? Module 3 is going to talk about how do we leverage our culture to build these social connections that we talked about earlier, where people find purpose at work, and they find like the people, their people, like their go-to community, and how do we leverage that for these opportunities for advancement, for promotion. And the fourth one, we're going to talk about like how do we use emotional intelligence to reduce some of the workplace conflicts that we have. We can't avoid them. Like, we would be lying if we said that we could. We can't. And then lastly, module 5 is going to talk about or roll up our sleeves and get to work. We're going to develop your workplace wellness and belonging plan. So if you are interested in this course or learning more, you can find the learning objectives as well as the rollout dates on our bit.ly. So the bit.ly is bit.ly/community at work. And it is case sensitive. So C, A, and W must be capitalized. We look forward to continuing this conversation. We definitely want to do this live again because we think it's so important that we talk about and we destigmatize these conversations around mental health or just wellness in general at work, as well as talk about the need to place this like side by side with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So thank you so much for joining us today. Julie, do you have any parting words?
I do. So my parting words are, Patricia and I love to work together and train together because, as you can see, we have fun, we have deep conversations, we keep it real, and we keep people engaged. So people walk out of there, their minds are blown from the content, and they also had a good time and were able to relax into that space. So if you want that for your employees, then have us come out and do this training, because we're going to have fun along the way and really create a safe and happy work environment for you and your employees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We are super excited that you were able to come on today. And if you are watching the recording, thank you so much for checking us out. And we hope you have a wonderful Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you.